So friends, Donald Trump had a really bad week today. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, today really was a bad week for Donald Trump. Excuse me for making the same joke twice. It was just such a devastatingly bad day. I want to touch on three stories, three really bad developments for Trump, but I want to focus on one in particular. Because the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals just delivered Donald Trump a devastating blow, ordering the dismissal of the special master that Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon had put in place to do what? To review all of the stolen classified materials that Donald Trump took from the White House and unlawfully concealed at Mar-a-Lago. And not only did Judge Cannon appoint that special master, but after she did, she ordered the Department of Justice, the FBI, to stop investigating the crimes of Donald Trump as they pertain to those documents. If you'll bear with me for just a couple of minutes, friends, what I want to do is read a few paragraphs from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals opinion. And the reason I want to read from this opinion is because it sings. The court starts out with the following. This appeal requires us to consider whether the district court, that's Judge Aileen Cannon, had jurisdiction to block the United States from using lawfully seized records in a criminal investigation. The answer is no. Boy, talk about appellate court judges not mincing words. And now we're going to jump ahead 20 pages in the opinion, because here is where their opinion almost turns to poetry. Only one possible justification for equitable jurisdiction remains. Equitable jurisdiction is the sort of catchphrase that Judge Cannon used to try to do this huge favor, though, for the president that appointed her, Donald Trump. Only one possible justification for equitable jurisdiction remains: that plaintiff, Trump, is a former president of the United States. It is indeed extraordinary for a warrant to be executed at the home of a former president, but not in a way that affects our legal analysis or otherwise gives the judiciary license to interfere in an ongoing investigation. The Ritchie test, that is the applicable test to see whether what Judge Cannon did, passes the laugh test. The Ritchie test has been in place for nearly 50 years. Its limits apply no matter who the government is investigating. To create a special exception here would defy our nation's foundational principle that our law applies to all without regard to numbers, wealth, or rank. The law is clear. We cannot write a rule that allows any subject of a search warrant to block government investigations after the execution of the warrant. Nor can we write a rule that allows only former presidents to do so. Either approach would be a radical reordering of our case law, limiting the federal court's involvement in criminal investigations. And both would violate bedrock separation of powers limitations. Accordingly, we agree with the government that the district court improperly exercised equitable jurisdiction and that dismissal of the entire proceedings is required. Boy, that almost gives me rule of law goosebumps. Now, friends, this opinion was 3-0, unanimous. And all three of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal judges were appointed by Republican presidents. 2 of them were appointed by Donald Trump. If that doesn't give us a little bit of reason for hope. Okay, friends, I want to just touch on 2 more developments because they're really bad developments for Trump. But I just want to sort of surface them today, and then I'll talk more about them in the coming days. Here is the first story that was reported today. This from CNN. Federal judge orders former top lawyers in Trump's White House to testify in criminal grand jury probe. A federal judge has ordered former top Trump White House lawyers to provide additional grand jury testimony, rejecting former President Donald Trump's privilege claims in the Justice Department's criminal investigation of his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Pat Cipollone, the Trump White House counsel, and his deputy Patrick Philbin appeared in September before the grand jury in Washington, D.C. as part of the Justice Department probe. So why is this a bad development for Donald Trump? Well, there were apparently some things that Pat Cipollone and Patrick Philbin didn't want to testify about. I suspect they weren't things that were helpful to Donald Trump. And a judge ruled, no, you will go back into the grand jury and you will fully testify about those matters. That can only work to Donald Trump's disadvantage. Here is the third and final bad development for Donald Trump. This headline from the New York Times: Anthony Ornato, key January 6 witness, speaks with House panel. Mr. Ornato, a former Secret Service agent and White House aide, is at the center of a dispute over competing accounts of President Donald J. Trump's actions. And you'll probably remember the testimony at the January 6 public hearings of Mark Meadows' aide, Cassidy Hutchinson, who told the J6 committee, and by extension the American people, what went on inside that presidential SUV on January 6th. She didn't see it, but the people in the SUV told her about it. And remember, that's where Donald Trump was yelling and screaming and cussing at the Secret Service agent driving the SUV, saying, "Take me to the effing Capitol. I'm the effing president." He wanted to join the insurrection in progress, and they refused. And Trump tried to grab the wheel, and it looks like he may have grabbed at the throat of somebody. Of course, cowardly person that he is, he knew full well they would not physically push back on him. But they didn't give in to his demands. They refused to take him to the Capitol. And it looks like now Tony Ornato, who, as an aside, let me say, friends, he followed a really odd career trajectory. He was a career Secret Service agent who then Donald Trump convinced to go on a leave of absence from the Secret Service and come over to the White House as part of Donald Trump's political team. What could possibly go wrong? I'm not saying that's unprecedented. I'm not saying it's never been done before, but boy, it is highly unusual. Well, we'll have to wait and see if Tony Ornato told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to the J6 committee or not. And then along with that story of Tony Ornato testifying to the J6 committee, former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway sits for 5-hour interview with J6 committee. Now, why might Kellyanne Conway's testimony be bad for Trump? First of all, we don't know if she testified to facts or alternative facts. But here is one data point that I have always found pretty compelling about what Kellyanne Conway might be able to bring to the table if she testifies fully and truthfully. Some people say, well, what can Kellyanne Conway possibly add to the insurrection mix? She left the White House before the election. That's true. But I think we have to drill down about when she left. Donald Trump first said If I lose the 2020 presidential election, it will be because the election was rigged. He first said that on August 17th, 2020, 3 months before the election itself. Kellyanne Conway promptly resigned from the White House, from her position as senior counselor to the President of the United States. Donald Trump made that statement, the election will be rigged if I lose. On August 17th, 2020, Kellyanne Conway resigned on August 30th, 2020. She got out of town before, the insurrection could really get going. So we know what the dates are. Now we need to know what the reasons are. And that's why the January 6th committee wore her out in testimony for some 5 hours. So they may have gotten to the bottom of it, but here's the thing, friends. If the J6 committee didn't get to the bottom of it during 5 hours of grilling Kellyanne Conway, you know who will? The federal grand jury. Oh, because they're going to subpoena Kellyanne Conway, and they will get to the bottom of why she left, when she left. Because justice matters. So yes, friends, today was a bad week for Donald Trump, but not for America. As always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.